Sunday too.
That's much better.
So we're ready? Good morning, everybody. I'm thrilled. This is gonna work out, finally. We have all the bugs. You know, we had some bugs last week recording. What we did was recorded mostly all of you saying, oh, am I on? 19 minutes of that. So we couldn't send out the video, but this week we have experts here to help me, so it should work. Now, the first thing I wanna tell you about is, guess what arrived on Saturday? My new cookbook, 692 recipes. It's wonderful, I'm thrilled, isn't it beautiful? It's a loose leaf, see it has dividers and everything, so if anybody wants one, you can come and get it. They're here, I'm here every day but Wednesday afternoon, I go to the beauty parlor on Wednesday. Other than that, I'm here, so you can drop in and get one. I would be thrilled to let you have a cookbook because I have 300 that I have to sell because I've already paid for all of them. So, minor point. Okay, today we're doing chili con carne. Now, I want you to know that this recipe for my chili won second place in the chili cook-off in Brantford about, I don't know, 5 or 10 years ago. There were about 12 restaurants that made chili, and they had a contest where people went from restaurant to restaurant to restaurant and tasted it, and they voted. And I did it for Donovan's Reef, because at the time we were playing trivia, and I knew the chef, and you know, I told him what a great chili recipe I had. Anyway, we made it, and everybody loved it, but we came in second, which wasn't bad out of 12. And it's not really spicy, and it does have beef in it. Now, some people make chili without beef, but this is made with beef. So I'm going to read the recipe. I'm going to turn on.
Betty Ann, you have to ask everybody to mute. Somebody just came on. They need to mute. And someone would like to know how much the book is.
You have to put yourself on mute.
And
don't forget to do that, please, because we're going to hear telephones ringing and all kinds of background
and stop
noise.
video.
And stop your video because otherwise we're going to be recording you as well. And we don't want to do that. And the book is $25. Okay, so for my chili con carne recipe, we have 1.5 cups of dry red kidney beans rinsed. Now this is what kidney beans look like. This is the bag of, this is Goya, this is a good brand. So they're dried. Now they last like this literally forever. So it says 1.5 cups. So this is 1.5 cups of dry red kidney beans. Now there's not quite 3 cups in the bag. So don't use the whole bag for this recipe unless you're going to double it. If you want to double it, that's fine. But if you do use the whole bag and keep everything else the same, this is going to be very dry chili. So we have to take these beans and we have to soak them. Now, we're going to soak them overnight. And when you soak them overnight, they swell a lot. Now, the reason we soak them overnight is because when beans are dried, it takes a lot to reconstitute them. I'm just cooking the meat here with the onions and the peppers for a couple of minutes. So after they're soaked, we're going to cook them. So I'm going to read the recipe. 1.5 cups of dry red kidney beans rinsed. Now you rinse them because sometimes they have little stones or little rocks, so you don't want to have anybody eating that. 1 large onion chopped, 1 bell pepper chopped, 1 pound of ground beef. That's all in here. I'm just cooking it up a little bit. Here's tomatoes. I have some chili powder, salt, and bay leaf and cayenne. And I have that right here. So what I'm trying to show you is, even though this is a long cook, this is very, very, very simple in terms of work. There's not much work involved in making this. So, in a 6-quart Dutch oven, soak the beans overnight in 6 cups of water. If beans absorb most of the water, add enough additional water to cover beans by 1 inch. Cook until tender. Usually takes 2 hours, but it depends on the beans. Now, if your beans are old, it's going to take longer. Do you know if the beans are old? No. How do you tell? You have to test them. So when you cook the beans, and here the beans are all cooked, we're going to test them. And the way you test them is, you want them to be tender. So if you press it and there's no resistance, they're done. You can taste them, of course. Okay, so it says, cook until tender, takes about 2 hours. Drain the beans, but save the liquid. So in order to do that, I put the strainer right in a measuring cup, or you can put it over a bowl. Because if you don't save the liquid, this is the reason it's so nice to use this recipe, because you need this liquid. This has a lot of flavor in it. Now, this has to be covered by a good inch of water. A good inch. Now, this is not an inch. So the beans did soak up a lot of the water. So I'm going to put some more water in here. Now, because obviously I'd be concerned about this water evaporating, we're going to cover it. All right, Jack, I'm going to take that into the kitchen and put that on the stove. Put it on the middle burner. I have the clicker out in case it doesn't light.
On the middle burner?
Yeah, on the light or something about it. Yeah, and then when it starts to boil, we're going to reduce it. So you're going to bring that to a boil and reduce it and cook it for about 2 hours. Now again, you're not going to boil the crap out of it for 2 hours because there's no need to do that. We're just going to simmer it until the beans are tender. In a medium saute pan, brown the meat, onions, and pepper in a little oil. Add the beans, tomatoes, chili powder, salt, bay leaf, and cayenne. Cover and simmer 2 or 3 hours. Add reserved bean liquid if mixture is dry or it dries out as it cooks. Remove bay leaf, taste for salt and pepper, and serve over rice. So, now this doesn't take very long to cook. And this is what it looks like. The meat is golden, there's no pink left. Okay, so I'm going to put in the beans. I'm going to put in the tomatoes. Now that's a little bit more than a cup, 3 cups of tomatoes. It's a little bit more. It's only about 3 cups plus another couple of tablespoons. So I'm using the whole can. This is a 28-ounce can. So I rinse out this pan. I got to break up these tomatoes a little bit. Now, the beans are really not completely covered by the liquid, so what should I do? I should put in some more of the bean liquid. And here's my spices. So this is all going to cook for about 2 or 3 hours. I'm going to put some more of this bean liquid in. Now, of course, I'm going to cook this covered. You don't have to cover it, but unless you want to keep an eye on it with the liquid. You don't want this to get dry. All right, that's it. Now, how long do you think it took me to do that? In terms of work. I don't mean in terms of time. I mean in terms of work. See, it's very, very, very simple to make this. Now, let's talk about the recipe. Why is it so good? Well, it says, remove the bay leaf, taste for salt and pepper, serve over rice. Now, what's the important part of that? The rice. What do we need? Why do we need the rice? Because the rice has all 7 essential amino acids except for 1, because this is not a lot of meat in this recipe. This serves 6 people. Well, with a pound of meat to serve 6 people, that isn't very much protein. But if you put this over rice and you have the beans, you're building more perfect protein, so this is a very, very healthy, low-fat dish. Because the only fat that's in here is that little tiny bit of oil that we started the meat out with, which was about a tablespoon, and the little bit of fat that's in the beef. So this is really a very healthy dish. It serves a lot of people. It's not expensive, and you can make it ahead, and it keeps very well. You can freeze this if you want after you've finished cooking it, then just heat it up. And again, you're better off having it juicy rather than dry. So make sure when you drain it, you save the water. Okay, Jack, this has to go in the other kitchen too, because I'm going to be making my my tart, and I don't want it to be too hot.
Okay.
So put this on, put it on the left burner and
Left front.
and I'm sorry, the left front. Wait, here, do this.
Ooh. And then what? Like
There's
just
covers in
just
the-
to simmer?
Yeah, just so there's covers in the drawer. And come back out and get that in case we need to add that.
Come back out and what?
Get the liquid, the bean liquid. Okay, so I got lots of wonderful pictures over the holiday of the pie that we made last week, which was very nice. And a lot of people commented that it was nice making a little extra tart so people could taste it before they served it on Sunday. Because, I told you, I always did that for my dad. So I'm glad that little things like that make you happy, because these traditions that I've done so long, it's nice to know somebody likes it. Okay, so let's look at the recipe for the chocolate raspberry tart. So this is a French recipe. Last week we made an Italian recipe. That was called pasta frolla, and that's an Italian word for a sweet crust. Today we're making a pâté sucre, and that's a French word for a sweet crust. So we have 2.5 cups of flour, 1/4 teaspoon of 1/4 cup of sugar, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1 cup of butter, and 2 eggs beaten. And we're going to mix the dry ingredients together. So cut the butter into the flour mixture. Add only enough egg until dough cleans the side of the bowl. Using slightly more than half of the dough, chill the rest. Roll out or press onto the bottom and sides of a 10-inch tart pan or a 9-inch glass pie dish. Set aside. Now, this is a 10-inch tart pan, removable bottom. If you're going to buy one, you want to get one that the pan, the insert is tight to the rim. You don't want to buy one that has a lot of play. If you can move the dish, you can move this bottom piece a lot. That's not good because the crust cooks into that space and it's hard to get it off the dish. So if you're going to buy one, also, see how big this hole is? The bigger this hole is, the better this is going to cook. Because if you have only a little tiny hole in the middle, that's metal, more metal, and the bottom of the crust is not going to cook. So if you're going to buy one, make sure you look for one with a big hole like this. Some of the holes they have are like this, teeny little holes. So this is a good tart pan. It's got a fluted edge. But again, if you don't have a tart pan, you can do this in a 9-inch pie pan. Now it's deeper, of course, than this is. This is only 1 inch, but it's the same volume. Okay, so now. Here's the flour and the sugar that I stirred together with a little bit of salt. Now I'm cutting in the butter using a pastry blender. And once again, if you do this on the Cuisinart, the butter is going to melt and you're going to have to chill this. And it's very difficult to roll out dough that's butter based, that's been chilled. Really, it's quite the workout. So believe me, it's better to do this than just to fight with the dough when you're rolling it out. Now this recipe is almost identical to last week. The other one had a little bit of vanilla in it. This one does not. Okay, now this I beat up 2 eggs. These are extra large eggs. I'm going to add a little bit at a time. And again, if this doesn't come together, I'm going to add some more liquid. I can use milk or I can use water, whatever. But you want this dough to come together. The hardest part of this recipe, the most time-consuming part of this recipe, is the raspberry sauce. Because straining the raspberry jam is a real pain in the neck.
So we have a question, Betty Ann.
Yes.
I lost it. If you use strawberries, do you have to use a sieve?
If you want to use strawberries?
Strawberries, right.
No, you don't have to strain strawberries.
Okay.
But this is a chocolate raspberry tart. See?
Someone asked if they could use strawberries.
Oh, now I have to tell you the story while I'm doing this. So about 15 years ago, I haven't made this in class in about 15 years, but Jackie, come over here, Jack. Jackie was in class. This is Jackie Knowles. She's one of my very favorite students. So Jackie's in class, and she tells me that she can't eat the dessert that day because she has to go to a luncheon. So would I pack it up for her on a takeaway dish? And I said, sure. So we give her the takeaway dish. Now the tart is warm, okay? Put the raspberries on the dish. Put the warm tart, and I wrapped it up. Now you can imagine what it smelled like. It was in the wintertime. So she gets in the car. She leaves, and one of my students said to me, I wonder how far she's going to get before she gets down. Because a warm thing in a closed car with chocolate, you can imagine. Anyway, so we were taking bets on how far she was going to get. So the next week when she came back to class, the first thing everybody said, Jack, how far did you get? And she said, I didn't even make it to the end of the drive.
That's so cute.
So true. The hell with the lunch.
We all knew that she wasn't going to be able to not eat that.
dry and eat.
Okay, I'm probably putting in another teaspoon or so of water. You can see this is not coming together. And we want it to come together. Now, don't forget, my heat has been on. This time of the year, everything is so dry in the house. I don't know, even though I have a humidifier, I think the humidity is about 10%. It's like a desert in here. All right, so let's see. I'm going to grab it up and let's see if it's coming together. You have more questions? No? Oh, don't forget, if you want to text me, you can text me too. On my phone, it's 203-627-0632. If you don't like to use the chat, that's fine. We can do the text. But this is coming together now. So I'm going to take a little more than half of this.
Which flour did you use?
I use regular gold medal. This is an old recipe. Okay, so there's my dough. It's all together. And that's what you want to see. You just want to be able to grab it together. It's cleaning the bowl, as you can see. Okay? Is that in the way?
Yeah, popped up. That's okay.
Now I'm going to take about half of this dough and the rest I'm going to put in the fridge. I'm going to show you a little trick about getting this into a tart pan. Now that pan is 10 inches. The sides are 1 inch. So I have to get this at least 13 inches. And I'm going to try to make it as round as I can because I'm not going to flute this. I just want to put it in there and have it be up the sides. Now you can see I don't know if you can see that. You see how there's pieces of butter in the dough? That's okay.
It makes it flaky, doesn't it?
Pardon?
It makes it flaky.
Yeah, it's fine if there's little chunks of butter. Now watch how I can patch this. And this is all because of the board and the cloth. All right, it's not sticking. So I'm going to take the bottom of the tart pan. Okay, I'm going to slide it underneath. See that? And I'm going to put it in the pan. That way it doesn't rip. And I'm going to press it into the flutes. And you know what that means. I have all these fluted edges on this pan. We want to get it nice and tight into the flutes. Okay, we're just going to press it off. See, I'm not going to do anything fancy with this edge. It's just going to come up to the top of the pan. No more. Okay? That's what it looks like. Okay, so I'm going to take this. I'm going to add it to my piece in here, just in case. Now we're going to make a lattice out of this. The rest of the recipe. We have, for the filling, 6 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate chips, 1/2 cup of soft butter unsalted, 1/2 cup of sugar, 1 cup of ground almonds, 1 egg and 1 egg yolk. Melted chips with 2 tablespoons of butter. So what I have in this pan 6 ounces of chips, and 6 ounces of chips is a cup. 2 tablespoons, see the butter? There's 2 tablespoons of butter, and the rest of the butter is in the KitchenAid, because that's where I'm going to mix the rest of the ingredients. But I have to stir this. Now, if you try to melt chips over the heat in a pan without anything else but chips in the pan, this is going to be burnt. So the butter melts first, of course, and then it's going to keep the chips from sticking and burning. This is very, very important to pay attention to this. You want to make sure you put the butter in, let it melt, and then you want to melt the chips. And I'm going to stir this the whole time. Now, another thing, there's eggs in this filling. I don't want to boil the crap out of this because there's no reason to. Once the chips melt, that's all I have to do. Now these are semi-sweet chocolate chips, so they're not going to take much to melt them. But we don't want to get them boiling either, because of course they will boil. So somebody asked questions while I'm doing this, because I have to stir this for a couple minutes. Please let me know if you're vaccinated. Wednesday morning is doing great. My Tuesday classes are not doing great. I haven't, maybe they are, but I haven't heard. So if you're in Tuesday, almost all the Tuesday classes, I haven't heard from anybody. And the night class is not so good. Monday morning and Wednesday morning so far are the best. They're almost completely vaccinated. And really, as soon as everybody's vaccinated, we can begin in-person classes.
So everybody in all the classes have to be vaccinated?
Well, no,
before we start?
if my Wednesday morning is done right away, we'll start Wednesday morning. If my Monday morning is done, we'll do it right away.
Good.
But I can't do it. I won't take anybody in the house unless you're vaccinated. I can't do that. And I don't want anybody else to be worried that I'm gonna let somebody else in that's not vaccinated. Okay, so now, this is melted. Can you see this? Okay? Now, it's not hot because I didn't boil the crap out of it. So I'm not concerned about putting that into the eggs because it's not hot. So over there on the machine, I have the butter and the sugar. So I'm going to read this again. Melt the chips with 2 tablespoons of butter in a small pan over medium heat, stirring constantly. Set aside. Beat the rest of the butter with the sugar until light. Add the almonds, egg, and egg yolk. Beat again. Add the chocolate and beat well. Spread over crust as evenly as possible. And to do that, of course, I'm going to use an offset spatula. Oh, I need this again, but I won't put it there. Okay, so I'm going to turn on the machine with the butter and the sugar. Now the butter is soft. If the butter wasn't soft, I'd have to beat this a lot longer.
Is this the spoon for the chili?
Okay, I'm going to put in the nuts. It's a cup of ground almonds. Putting in the egg and the yolk. I'm going to beat that all up. Now we're going to put in the chocolate. We'll scrape the bowl a little bit because we don't want the butter to be stuck to the bowl without any chocolate in it. All right. set. You gotta ask some questions.
Did you use ground roasted almonds?
They're not roasted. They're not roasted. They're raw. You could, but we're gonna cook this for a while, so that's really enough to cook to toast the almonds. If you use toasted almonds and then you cook them again, sometimes they get a little bit bitter. This is absolutely delicious.
Oh, looks so good.
Now again, if this is warm, and it might be because I did this pretty fast, it might take you, I had all the stuff ready. So if your chocolate is cooling off more than mine did, this will not be as warm. But if you have a problem with the lattice, don't try to weave it, just try to lay it on top. It'll be fine. Because once you put a butter crust on top of something warm and it starts to melt, it starts to get soft, it's kind of hard to weave it. Now this is a nice dessert to take somewhere because it's very portable. It's also very easy to get it off of the pan, so you don't have to give away your bottom of your tart pan, because they get lost very easily. All right, so that's good. We're going to put that aside. Now we're going to make the top lattice. And I'm going to be able to tell very quickly if this is too warm, because I'm going to see the dough soften up a little bit. Now if you had a fluted cutter, you could use a fluted cutter. There's no baking powder in this. This is not going to grow. So you can use a fluted cutter. There's no sense in using a fluted cutter if you have baking powder, or it's going to puff because you're going to lose the definition. Now the most important thing about this is getting this even. You want the same thickness from all the way across. So you can just feel it. It feels nice and even. See how that patches? Look at that. See, that's the beauty of the cloth and the cover. All right, so now I'm going to cut some strips about 3/4 of an inch wide. And as soon as I lay them down, I'll be able to tell if this filling is too warm to weave. I don't know if you can hear this, but it's going, the sugar, you can hear this cutting through the grains of sugar. Again, this is a sweet crust. Okay, so now in the center, and then space it. Now if you start on one side and you hope you're going to get it even, it's never going to work. Okay, so there's my first strips. All right, now I can tell that this is okay. It's not hot, so I can weave this. I'm going to do a diagonal lattice. So I'm going to pull back 2 and 4. I'm going to do it corner to corner. Again, dead center in the middle. Pull back 1, 3, and 5. pull back 2 and 4. And then pull back 1, 3, and 5 on this side. And then 2 and 4. And we're good to go. Now all I have to do to finish this is press the lattice. See what I'm doing? There's no fluting. I'm just pressing the lattice and getting rid of the ends, of which I have a little bit. A little bit of chocolate on that I don't like. Okay, and there's my tart. Okay, this has to go in the oven. I'm going to do 400 because we're going to use convection, and then for 10 minutes, and then reduce it to 350
After 10 minutes.
after 10 minutes. Yeah, make sure you put the timer on. Oh, you know what? I'll put the timer on out
Put the
here
timer
too.
on for 10
Yeah.
minutes.
You do not want to forget that. This will burn. Okay. So once again, a relatively simple tart made with a cookie crust. Pâté. This one is a pâté soup. Okay, got questions? No questions?
Yeah.
Come on, guys, you gotta ask some questions.
The recipe says 425.
Yeah, I'm reducing it to 400
Okay.
because I'm doing it on convection. And that's a little bit too hot for a regular. I'm not concerned about the time here. I'm concerned about burning the butter. So if you don't use convection, then 425 is fine. But if you're using convection, bring it down to 400. I know not everybody uses convection, but we use convection for everything. Remember, this is an old recipe. This was way, way before we had convection. Okay.
Is this recipe in your book?
This is in one of my old books. By the way, one of my students yesterday said to me, "Oh, now I can throw away my other 2 books because they're a mess." And I said, "No, no, 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 no. These are new recipes. These are not in the other 2 books. There's a few that we chose, like the brioche, because Steph feels my brioche recipe is so outstanding. Puff pastry, of course, is in the new book, and it was in both of the other books.
You're good.
Not the ingredients, but the basic puff pastry. My pasta roll is in the new book as well as in both of the old books. So there's very, very, very few recipes that are in either of the other books and in this book. These are mostly new, and a lot of these recipes in this book are from the trips. A lot. So you'll notice that as you go through, especially people that have been on the trips. You'll notice that there's a lot of recipes from the trips. It's so nice having everything all together. Oh, yesterday when I was cooking for Easter, I was using the new book and I said, "Oh, this is so nice, having everything right here." I have so many sheets and books and binders, and it was just so nice having and the index is wonderful. They did a great job with the index. I'm very, very pleased in general with this company. So that's one of the good things they did. The index is great. All right, so we're gonna make some soup. Now this is one of my daughter's, one of her favorite soups. And this is what I called it, vegetable potato soup. I don't know. I'm not too creative with my names. All right, so we have 2 tablespoons of butter, 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 1 tablespoon of minced garlic, 1 cup of chopped carrots, 2 large celery stalks chopped, 1 bunch of leeks rinsed well and sliced thinly, 1 pound of potatoes, 2 bay leaves, a half a teaspoon of pepper, a half a teaspoon of salt, 6 cups of low sodium chicken broth, hot. Now, if it isn't hot, it's fine, but it's just gonna take longer to cook this, because if the chicken broth is hot, it takes less time to get this hot and cook the potatoes. 19-ounce can of white beans rinsed and drained. I'm using cannellini beans. 1 small zucchini diced, 2 cups of canned whole Italian tomatoes with juice, 2 cups of corn, fresh or frozen, 2 tablespoons of pesto, that's optional, and then Parmesan cheese for garnish. Now, what I have in here, I have the butter, the olive oil, the garlic, the carrots, and the celery. So I just chopped up the celery small. Just tip it a little bit this way, Karen. The celery is small, and the carrots are small. Remember, everything should fit on a spoon. Okay, so we're going to cook that for a couple minutes. Stir and cook until vegetables begin to soften. I wanted to speed this up again a little bit. I could put a cover on this. I have a cover out here that'll fit. I gave you your cover to the other pot, so it's all right. So we're going to do some leeks. Now, this is a bunch of leeks. These are enormous. So I'm going to rinse these. Now, I have to say that the leeks make the soup. If I didn't have the leeks, I wouldn't make the soup. It makes that much of a difference. Now, sometimes you can use onions, but here, that's not the case. The leeks make this recipe. Now, these are filthy, absolutely filthy. And like everything else in the allium family, you never, ever, ever want to chop and then rinse. You don't want to do that with onions. You don't want to do that with scallions. You don't want to do that with leeks. You always want to rinse them and then chop, because when you chop and then rinse, you're literally rinsing away all of the flavor. So I'm going to slice these thinly. These are so big, I'm going to do this. Now remember, you don't take off the bottom of the leek. You don't take off the root, because if you do, all the leaves are going to start to slide. Makes it very difficult to cut. You want to make sure you leave the root intact until after they're chopped. Now this is a meatless dish yet again. You can use, you can see that if you use vegetable stock, it's a vegetarian dish and it's a vegan dish. But it's healthy, and tell me why it's healthy. Who knows? Put it in the chat. What's in here that makes this so healthy? It's a combination of something. Anybody know what it is? Jack, you know what it is?
Lysine,
The lysine. Where's the lysine coming from?
the beans,
The beans. And where's all the other ingredients coming from? All the other 7 amino acids coming from?
the vegetables.
No.
No,
One vegetable in particular.
okay.
Coming from the corn. So the corn is very important to add to this recipe.
The corn hasn't gone in yet, that's why.
The corn has all 7 amino acids, just like flour or wheat. Wheat, corn, and rice have all 7 amino acids. They're all missing one thing. They're all missing lysine. We have the lysine from the beans, so if you put the corn and the beans together, like succotash, think of succotash, you're going to get a perfect protein. Now, remember, there's no meat in this, but this is a really healthy Very, very nutritious dish, very, very, very low in fat and loaded with fiber. You literally could not eat something healthier than this. So we're gonna cook this up for a couple of minutes. Now the stock is hot. Here I have the potatoes. This is a pound of Yukon Gold potatoes that we dice. And again, they're small because they have to fit on a spoon. That's the whole idea of making soup. Everything should fit on a spoon. So we put in the potatoes. We're going to put in the stock. Again, this stock is hot, so this is going to come to a boil right away. Now we're going to let that cook until the potatoes are done. And when the potatoes are done, this is the zucchini, the corn, and the tomatoes are in here too. I have 2 cups. I have 2 cups of canned whole tomatoes with juice. So what I did was I just broke them up a little bit. This is going to cook enough time so the tomatoes will fall apart. So we're going to, when these potatoes are cooked, which will take about 10 minutes or so, we're going to put this in. This soup freezes very well. You can double this. You need a big pot to double it. And of course, if you double it, it will take longer because it's going to take longer for the stock and the potatoes to cook. But really, it's a very quick meal if you make one batch and the stock is hot. Okay, so you're going to lower that, Jack?
Yep.
Okay. So while this is cooking, we're going to go back to this tart. So to serve this tart, we're going to put a sauce. We're going to puddle a sauce on the bottom of the dish. So for the sauce, 2 10-ounce packages of frozen raspberries in syrup, thawed, and 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. Puree the berries in the processor and strain through a fine sieve. Discard the seeds. Heat strained puree with lemon juice and boil for about 3 minutes. If a sweeter sauce is desired, add a little sugar. Option: heat raspberry jam and strain. Discard the seeds. Use as above. So I'm going to use the raspberry jam. I put a little bit of lemon juice in it to thin it out a little bit. Now, if I tried to strain this without heating it, it would, you want to rip your hair out. So we're going to put this over the heat. I'm going to stir it because, of course, it can burn because it's so much sugar. And then we're going to strain it. Now, we're going to lose about 3/4 of the volume of this. And I'm going to strain it through a very fine sieve. Now, if you don't want to do this, you can just use the jam with the juice in it with the seeds. But if somebody doesn't like raspberry seeds, I'm going to show you how to do this. And then I have a plastic bottle with a squirt. I can put it in there and I can puddle it on the dish. Because to serve this, we're going to puddle some sauce on a dish.
Half an hour?
Yeah, give it 25. Puddle some sauce on a dish. Cut a small wedge of tart. Remember, this is very, very rich. Place on the sauce along with a dollop of whipped cream and additional fresh whole raspberries if desired. And you have to store it in the fridge. Jack, go see in that drawer if there's another color that'll fit on this pot because I don't want to have this cooking without. Okay, so this is getting hot. I want you to see this apron that I have on. Now, it says this shit is going to taste delicious. Okay? Now, I want you to guess who gave me this apron. One of my students who's slightly nuts, maybe more than slightly. Most of you know him. It's a guy, a big guy. He was a cop. I'm giving you clues. Karen, can you guess who this is?
I don't know who he is.
No, you don't know who he is?
Yeah, no. Michael.
Michael.
Michael. Randy just answered. Michael.
Yeah, Michael Shapiro.
Randy's the only one that's sending questions, and she answered.
Oh,
We need-
good, perfect, thank you. By the way, this is the Polliner jam. I'm very happy with this jam. It's really very, very, very good quality. But there's others. Smucker's is good too. Now, if you wanted to, you could buy raspberry jelly and just heat that up with some lemon juice and skip this step because the raspberry jelly has no seeds. The raspberry jelly can be very, very difficult to find.
Is that the all fruit, the Polliner?
No, this has sugar in it. This has sugar in it. Can you see what I'm doing? I have a spoon here. Now this is a very fine sieve. This is a double mesh wire sieve. There's two pieces of wire and they're not lined up. So this is going to catch literally everything. It'll catch all the seeds.
Betty, how much? Randy would like to know how much jam did you use?
I guess a 10 ounce. Start with a 10-ounce jar. You know, this is just a little bit of decoration. You're not going to use a ton of this. So a 10-ounce jar and 1 lemon would be good. It'd be enough for the whole tart to serve, unless you really like a lot of sauce. Like I said, you don't get much out of this. Okay, so these seeds, the seeds that are in here now, I'm going to toss that. Scrape this off the bottom. Now, if you're using the frozen raspberries in syrup, you don't have to add any sugar, of course, because they're already sweet. But if you wanted to put a little bit of sugar in, you could.
Want me to do that?
Pardon?
I can do that for you.
No, I need to use it again.
Is almond flour the same as ground almonds?
Yeah. Yeah. And not cooked, and not toasted. Almond flour is never toasted. Almond flour, the almonds are blanched and then they're ground, so the flour doesn't have any color, but the flavor's the same. If you want to use blanched almonds, if that's what you had, that's fine. But if you had a whole almond, that's fine too. The skins won't show. Almond skins are not bitter, and they won't show because of the chocolate. So would be no difference at all in the finished product.
So for this recipe, it works. The almond flour works.
It's fine, yeah. Okay, so there's my sauce. Now you can see this has a little bit of thickness to it. Okay, so we would puddle this on the plate. Put the piece of tart on top. So now you're starting to get the idea how this warm chocolate tart with this warm sauce covered in a dish in a car, how it would smell. And what would be the chances that you would be able to not eat that? I think chances are slim to none.
That's right.
Now, as soon as these potatoes are cooked, I'm going to put in the rest of the vegetables and then let it cook just for a little bit more, not too much, not too much more time. Now, what I do for my daughter is she loves this soup for lunch because it's very healthy, it freezes beautifully. So we make a lot of this, and she puts it in containers, about a 2-cup container, and she freezes it. And then she takes it out, lets it thaw, and then she just warms it up. It's a great lunch. I've sent this to so many people this winter that were sick because it's healthy, it's low fat, and it keeps well. You can keep it for a week or more in the fridge. And so I try to send food to somebody every day, and this was one of the things I made a lot of this year because I love this recipe, and everybody else seemed to love it, and it's very healthy. All right, let me wash my hands, and we'll take some questions. Now, please keep sending me pictures of things that you make, because I got a picture of the couscous salad. Everybody loved that. That was a big hit. And again, I got some wonderful pictures of the pie. The lattice was beautiful. I was very impressed. So I love getting pictures of everything that you do, because that's where I take a lot of pride in that. I said, you know, some of my students have come a long, long way. All right, so look at this wonderful sauce. Okay, questions? Now this soup will serve about 8 for a meal. The chili will serve about 6 with, of course, with the rice, the cooked rice, and this tart will serve about 12.
Can the chili be frozen?
Yes, you can freeze the chili and you can freeze the soup as well. Yeah. Now, sometimes, because the beans, there's almost 3 cups in that bag, I just always make a double batch and then freeze it. But you can also just leave it in the fridge too.
Can you make the beans and then just freeze the beans?
Yeah, you can do that too, but you want to make sure you save the liquid. Because you need the liquid. Is that drying out?
It's simmering away, but it's still
It's okay?
juicy.
Okay, because if it doesn't look juicy, we're gonna add some more of that
Some of
bean
the
liquid.
Mhm.
Now, you're gonna have you should have a couple of cups of the liquid, of the bean liquid. If you don't, that means you didn't put enough water in the pan. A good inch means, don't forget that the beans have expanded already with the water that you put them in. And so if you put another, you need another inch of water. That's a lot of water over the tops of the beans. So the bean liquid is very, very important. Now, of course, someone's gonna say, why don't you just use canned beans? Could you? Yes, but you don't have any liquid. It's gonna be very dry, and if you just use water because you have to have some liquid in there, it does not have the flavor that this does. So I know that it's time consuming to soak the beans and to cook them, but it's not a lot of work. It just takes a little bit of time. What I always do is I just soak the beans overnight. In the morning when I get up, I just cook them when I'm having breakfast, and then they're ready, and we can just make the chili. Because putting the chili together is nothing. It takes no time at all. Now, in Cincinnati, they serve this over spaghetti. So what's in the spaghetti? All 7 amino acids except for the lysine. So either way, if you serve it over spaghetti or if you serve it over rice, it's still a healthy, healthy dish. Now, some people would serve this with corn chips. Corn chips are good because corn chips have 7 of the amino acids, and the beans have the lysine. So there's lots of ways to make this a very healthy dish. Remember, when you're only using a pound of meat for 6 servings, and the standard portion of beef is 4 ounces of protein, that's not a lot of meat for in this recipe. So the rice and the beans are important to make enough protein for a balanced meal.
Like to see what it looks like.
As soon as the potatoes are done, see how the potatoes, okay, the potatoes are done, and all I did was grab one, okay, and squeeze it. See how so I know it's ready, and I'm gonna put this in now. Now this will come back to a simmer. Isn't this look delicious?
Looks so good.
It's colorful. It's very colorful because of the orange and the tomatoes. It's just a wonderful combination of flavors. One time I made this, I didn't have any zucchini, so I just left it out, but I have to say, I wouldn't do that again. The zucchini really is, the zucchini is really nice in it. Now, if you had yellow squash, you could use that instead, but the zucchini is really, really nice. It's a nice recipe.
if you wanted to make your own beans for the vegetable potato soup, the white beans?
Yeah. I've done that, same exact thing. You take, not a whole pound of beans.
Well, it's 19, so what is that 19 ounces of canned white beans. So what would you need for the recipe?
You'd use about half a pound, and do the same thing, soak them, and then, and again, it's gonna be a half a pound of beans. And what I normally do is, do usually use dried beans. I wanted to make something simpler for you today, but I do use dried beans a lot. I take the whole pound, soak them overnight, cook them in a lot of water, save the liquid, not all of it, but some of it, and then do the same thing.
And can you freeze the other half?
Oh gosh, everything can be frozen. Talking about beans, I've got to put beans in. Good thing you're here, Karen.
Well, I would keep watching through the video to make sure you're not moving, and then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, did I miss that?
Okay, so now you know why you rinse the beans?
Salt.
Because of the salt, yeah. You get rid of 55% of salt by rinsing the beans. Now, of course, when I make my own beans, I don't put any salt in, so I don't have to rinse them. I just drain them.
Did you notice the new smaller cans, I don't know if those as well, but the new smaller cans of the Goya, it says lower sodium right on the front of the can now?
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's good, but I still rinse them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of starch that you're adding too, and you've got the potatoes in this. All right. Now, I don't know how, see, remember what I said about you have to use a big pot if you double this? Because this is 16, this is 16 quarts, and this is, see how full it is? You need a big pot to double this. But I do. When I'm gonna give it away, I do double it, because the only thing it is, it takes longer because when you're cooking the potatoes, that step, it takes longer because when you add that many potatoes, when you add 2 pounds of potatoes, of course, it cools the liquid down, and that takes a little longer to come back to temp. But other than that, so we're gonna let this boil for a little bit, and then we can have lunch. I wish some of you could be here to taste this, because it's delicious. Now, I'm gonna throw a bay leaf in there too, I forgot that. And then we're gonna put a little salt and pepper in.
Do you generally serve it with the pesto or without?
You can. Now, if I serve it with the pesto, I don't put in any salt, because the pesto is salty. It's nice with the pesto if you like that, but you should serve it with Parmesan. Now I put in 1 whole bay leaf. Okay, and what am I going to do before I serve any of the soup? Take it out.
Take it out.
I'm going to take out your bay leaves.
You don't want to murder people with the soup.
Okay, so I'm going to put this in here. And you really could do this with any kind of I was kidding about the strawberry thing. You could do this with any kind of fruit.
Lemon.
Pardon?
They have lemon? Yeah, how would you do lemon? Lemon and chocolate.
A lemon
Sweet
curd?
lemon. Lemon
You
curd.
could do a lemon curd, sure. Yeah, you could do a lemon curd if you wanted.
It's a nice combination.
Yeah, lemon and chocolate is a very nice combination. I had someone come over on Friday. We made an Italian. She wanted to learn how to make an Italian cream pie, so we showed her how to make an Italian cream pie, and that's a lemon and chocolate.
Yeah.
We do half the pudding lemon and half the pudding chocolate. That's really a nice combination. So there's my sauce. Now you can see it has a little bit of thickness to it. So we're going to squirt this onto the dish, put the slice, a little cream, and then that's it. We have some fresh berries that we use as a garnish. And if you were using strawberries, you would do the same thing with some fresh strawberries. See? Lovely. I want to remind you that next Thursday, not this Thursday, but next Thursday is the first class for the Yale series. You should have all received that invitation. If you did not, text me and I will make sure that you get it, because we did send it out to everybody, but we know that some people fall between the cracks. There's a series of 4 classes. I'm going to be with someone for 3 weeks, some lady talking about etiquette, one lady coming from a brewery, and then David Brous is coming back to pair the food that I make with wine. So it's going to be fun. We had a wonderful experience last time. They raised a lot of money for the hospital, so we're trying to trying to do that again. So again, if you didn't get the invite, please let me know. Just text me, and we will make sure that you get an invite.
Or send it in the group chat now, we can send it out.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
So are there any questions? No more questions? So come over and get a book? I can't, I wanna get rid of these books because I got 28 cartons of these in the house. My God, it looks like I have a warehouse here. I can't even imagine if I ordered 300, if I had ordered more, what I would have done with them. I don't know where I would have put them.
Well, your garage is beautiful now.
Yeah.
Can you put, I'm sorry, there's questions that came on your phone. Can you put Parmesan rind in the soup?
Yes, you could, absolutely, yeah.
What did you just add to the soup? That was 3 minutes ago.
The beans.
The beans, maybe that's what you want to do.
Yeah, the beans. At the end of the recipe, it says, drain the beans, chop the zucchini, tomatoes, and add to the pot along with the corn. Forgot to do that, so I forgot to put the beans in. I put everything else in, but forgot to put the beans in. But since I had them out, that's why I get everything out, because if something is still sitting on the counter, and it shouldn't be, I know I forgot to put it in. I'll tell you a story about my friend Richard. I make this wonderful sour cream coffee cake. He wanted to learn how to make it, so I showed him how to make it. And it's got sour cream, butter, sugar, eggs, and all that. So anyway, I told him he has to use a 10-inch loose bottom pan. You have to grease it and flour it. Okay, we did all that. So he makes the cake, puts it in the oven. He calls me up. He says, Betty Ann, I put the cake in the oven. I looked and the eggs are still sitting on the counter. He said, what can I do? I said, Rich, you can't do anything. He said, you can't. You gotta throw it out and start again. So he said, okay. I said, now you gotta wash the pan, dry it, make sure you grease it, because that cake will never come out of the pan if you don't grease it and flour it again. Okay. Does everything all over again. Calls me back. He says, Betty Ann. He said, the eggs are still sitting on the counter. I said, Richard, I tell you what.
Come over.
Forget it. I said, forget it. I'll make the cake for you. I said, because you can't leave the eggs out of the cake. That's not an option. So, if everything is right in front of you, do your mise en place, put everything out. If something is still sitting there, I went to a girl's house once. When we first moved to Branford, this girl invited me over for coffee, and she made brownies, and she saw the sugar still sitting on the counter, and a brownie. So she opened, now I was there already, and the brownies were already 3/4 cooked. So she said, oh, I forgot the sugar. She opened the oven, she took the pan out, she sprinkled the sugar over the top of the brownies, and she put it back in the oven. And I looked at her like, oh my God, you're a moron, this is not gonna work. Now, you use unsweetened chocolate in brownies. I don't know if you've ever tasted unsweetened chocolate, but unsweetened chocolate is so bitter and so nasty. So I couldn't eat. Of course, I couldn't eat it. I mean, I couldn't. There's no way. I couldn't even be nice and try to swallow it because it was so disgusting. So there's some things you can add and some things you can't. Beans, not a problem, but eggs and sugar, hey, that's a problem. So. Okay, so this is boiling now. I'm going to reduce this to a simmer and let this cook until everything is nice and soft. All right. So we have how much more time on the toast?
5 minutes. Should I check
Okay,
it
check
now?
it just in case, because if it's done, we can take it out and show. I want to show everybody.
So you want it to just be golden?
Yeah, just be golden. Yeah. You can test it. The inside the door on the right is the tester.
The tester.
You want it to be clean. Yeah.
All right.
What are you baking next week in the first Yale class? Do you know?
Bread. We're doing a fancy bread. It's spring baking. It's called. We're doing a fancy bread. We're not calling it Easter bread. We're going to
you
do.
told me.
We're going to do a ricotta bread, and but I'm going to show you how to do a couple of different ways. Make it into a loaf or make it into a bread. Yeah, we can't really call it Easter bread, so we're not.
That's okay, we'll still eat it.
Pardon?
We'll still love to eat it.
Oh yes, it's a delicious recipe, absolutely delicious recipe. Yeah. So
What did you make for Easter?
I made chocolate chiffon pie. I made apple crumb pie, and I made coconut custard. These were requests from my family, and I also made Parker House rolls, and we had leg of lamb, and we had ham. We had about 18 dessert vegetables. Of course, everybody over 8, which is standard for my family. So, I was so happy to see everybody. We haven't been together in a long time. The kids are getting so big, and
Yeah, it's been a year.
it's been a year, yeah, over a year, a little bit over a year. Yeah, we didn't have Easter last year. We couldn't have Easter
Yeah.
last year. So it's been a long time. So I was very happy to see everybody, and everybody looks good. Everybody's healthy. No one in my family has gotten sick, so we're very grateful for that. Because we've also been very careful,
Yes,
you know.
stay away.
Yeah, we've been very careful. I mean, I haven't been anywhere, done anything. One of my students asked if we could possibly go on the trip this year, and I have to say, thinking about it over the weekend, and with looking at the paper and looking at the times, I just don't think it's gonna be possible. I know people won't go, and I don't wanna lose students in that regard. Looks good?
I think so.
Oh, yeah, looks perfect.
I didn't bring the.
That's okay, put it right here, put it right here. Yeah. No, you can put it on.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is all cooked. Okay. Now you can see how golden the top is. Now if you want to dust this with a little bit of confectioner's sugar, now of course you can't serve this hot like this, but you could serve it after maybe 10 or 15 minutes. But you see how beautiful it looks? See that? Now remember, that's the diagonal lattice. You can do a square lattice if you want. It doesn't change the taste. It just changes the look a little bit. But you can see that the crust is not overdone, and it looks beautiful, and it smells absolutely out of this world. So again, small pieces because it's rich, and puddle the sauce on the dish and then serve it with some extra raspberries and some whipped cream. You need the whipped cream because this is a lot of chocolate in here, and you got to cut it a little bit. Here's our tart. This should chill in a rack. I'll just put it here on the stove so it'll cool. Now remember, when you're putting this into the oven, whenever you're putting a tart pan into the oven, let me show you what you shouldn't do. Okay, when you pick up a tart pan, you don't ever do this. Okay, you do this. Because one of my students did this with the potato gratin.
Ooh.
And everything wound up on the oven door. So remember, when you're picking up a loose bottom tart pan, like this, okay? It sounds silly, but it's very tempting to do one of these. It's very, very tempting. So, now this will come out of the pan very, very, very easily. Because I'm just going to show you how I can pick it up. See how I can pick it up and get it out of the pan? Because of course the butter that's in the crust keeps it from sticking. And you can get it off of the bottom pan also. I don't suggest you send this anywhere on the bottom of the pan, because people don't realize that it's important and they just throw them out. So put it on a dish or a cake dish or something, and then that's how you should bring it. Because it's very easy to transport something like this. This is a great dish to bring if you're going to a party, if you have to make a dessert. Because everybody likes chocolate pretty much, easy to serve, and it's delicious. How are we doing with questions?
All set.
All set? I answered all the questions? By the way, that Parmesan rind, that's an excellent idea. That's an excellent idea, because especially when you have the Parmesan Reggiano, you don't want to waste not even an inch of it. And if you wanted to, this doesn't cook that long, so it's not going to really soften up a lot. Like, it's not going to be really, really mushy. But if it does get soft, you can cut it up and just eat it. There's nothing bad on Parmesan Reggiano. The whole entire thing is edible. It's not like some cheeses that the rind has to be taken off. Okay, so that was about a little bit less than.
That was about 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Okay. Yeah, on convection you have to always check it a little bit sooner. Okay, well we're good. So come over and get your books. I'm anxious. I'll get rid of some. I do have shipping boxes. If anybody wants to ship one somewhere, I did buy a couple of shipping boxes. So if anybody wants a shipping box, I can give you one of those. But otherwise, just come over and get your books. It would be nice if you're only going to buy 1 or 2 books if you had cash, because I'm going to have a million checks otherwise. But if you're going to buy a lot of books, I'll take a check. But if you're just going to buy 1 or 2 books, that would be nice if you had cash. Otherwise, I'll be going to the bank forever. Okay, we good?
We're good.
We're good, Karen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everybody. See you next Monday.